Commander Zethrak stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the blue planet below. Earth. Home to the humans. He had fought in 17 wars across 9 different parts of the galaxy. He had led soldiers through dangerous battles. He had won 3 medals for his bravery. But nothing had prepared him for what he was about to see at the human military school. The Galactic Coalition had created an exchange program. They wanted to understand how humans trained their soldiers. Humans had joined the galaxy recently, and they had already proven themselves good fighters. But the way they fought was strange. Other species whispered about them. The coalition leaders decided someone should go and see the truth. Zethrak was chosen for this mission. He was a respected commander. He had experience. He would observe the human military academy and report back. It seemed like a simple task. Just watch and learn. His small ship moved through the clouds and landed at a military base. A human woman waited for him. Her name was Lauren Hayes. She was his guide. She smiled at him when he stepped off the ship. Zethrak noticed she showed many teeth when she smiled. It made him uncomfortable. Lauren walked toward him and held out her hand. This was how humans greeted each other. Zethrak reached out and took her hand carefully. He tried not to react when her grip was stronger than he expected. She was small. She barely reached his chest. But her hand felt like it could crush metal. "Welcome to Earth, Commander," Lauren said. Her voice was friendly. "Thank you," Zethrak replied in English. He had studied the language before coming. "I am happy to be here. I want to learn about human military training." Lauren's smile got bigger. "Oh, you will definitely learn something." They drove to the academy. It sat on top of a cliff next to a river. The buildings were made of gray stone. Everything looked organized and clean. Hundreds of young humans walked around in matching uniforms. They all moved with purpose. Zethrak watched them carefully. "These are the students," he asked Lauren. "They look very young." "They are between 18 and 22 years old," Lauren explained. "They choose to come here and serve." Zethrak felt confused. In his culture, soldiers did not start training until they were 30 years old. By that age, they were fully grown. These humans were just children. Why would they send children to military school? A young human male approached them. His name was Ryan Collins. He had very short hair and serious eyes. He saluted Zethrak with a sharp movement. Zethrak returned the salute in his own way. "Sir, I will be your guide this week," Ryan said. "If you need anything, please tell me." "Thank you," Zethrak said. "I look forward to watching your training." Ryan's face changed for a moment. Zethrak could not read the expression. "Yes, sir. We start tomorrow at 5:30 in the morning." 5:30? Zethrak checked the time. "Before the sun comes up?" "That is when our day begins, sir." Zethrak went to his room that evening. Lauren had given him papers about the academy schedule. He read them carefully. The schedule looked terrible. Physical training before dawn. Classes all day. More training in the afternoon. Study time late at night. There were no rest days in the whole week. Maybe they changed the schedule for his visit, he thought. Surely nobody could keep doing this every day. It must be special for him. He checked the schedule again. Physical training started at 5:30 every morning. Not just tomorrow, every single day. The humans woke up before the sun every day and exercised. Zethrak put down the papers. He had been in many battles. He had trained hard his whole life. But he had never seen a schedule like this. And these were students. Young humans who were still learning. A strange feeling grew in his chest. Worry. These humans were different from other species in the galaxy. Everyone knew that. But seeing it up close was going to be different than hearing stories. He thought about the young humans he had seen walking around the academy. They all looked strong. They all moved with confidence. They had been doing this schedule for months or years. It was normal for them. What kind of species did this to their children? What kind of soldiers were they creating? Zethrak tried to sleep, but found it difficult. His mind kept thinking about tomorrow. What would he see? The schedule said, morning physical training. What did that mean? How hard would it be? He had observed military training on many worlds. The Valorians trained hard. The Krell trained even harder. But there was something about the human schedule that worried him. It was not just hard. It was constant. Every day. No breaks. No rest. Just endless training. The young human Ryan had looked at him with those serious eyes. The boy was probably 20 years old. Just a child. But his eyes looked older. Like he had already seen difficult things. Like he had already been through battles. Zethrak finally fell asleep a few hours before dawn. When the alarm rang at 5 in the morning, he felt tired. He got dressed in the uniform they had given him. It was dark outside. The stars were still visible through his window. He walked to the meeting place. Ryan was already there. So were many other students. Zethrak stared at them. They were wearing very little clothing, even though the air was cold. They were preparing for exercise. "Good morning, sir," Ryan said. He sounded happy and awake. "I hope you are ready for a light workout." Zethrak looked at the young humans gathering in lines. It was 5 in the morning, and they looked ready to fight. A human man walked to the front. His name was Jake Peterson. He was an officer here. "Good morning, warriors," Jake shouted. "Good morning, sir." All 200 students shouted back at the same time. The sound was so loud it hurt Zethrak's ears. This was just the beginning. The first morning, Zethrak watched the students and felt his worry grow stronger. These humans were different. Very different. And he was about to find out exactly how different they were. The students began to run. Not a short sprint. Not a tactical movement. They just ran. Their feet hit the ground together, making a rhythm. Zethrak started jogging next to Ryan. At first, it was easy. Zethrak's body was strong. He could keep up with these young humans without trouble. But they did not stop. They kept running. Through the campus. Down roads. Past buildings. The sun started to come up. Still they ran. Zethrak's legs began to hurt. His breathing got harder. "How long is this run?" he asked Ryan. Ryan was not even breathing hard. "About 5 miles today." "Recovery from what?" "Yesterday we ran 8 miles and did obstacle courses." Zethrak could not believe it. This was an easy day for them? His legs felt weak. His lungs burned. These humans had bodies that could run forever. Finally, the run ended. Zethrak wanted to collapse. But the students immediately dropped to the ground. They started doing exercises called push-ups. They lowered their bodies to the ground and pushed themselves back up. Over and over. Dozens of times. Then they did sit-ups. Then more exercises with strange names. Burpees. Mountain climbers. Planks. Each one looked painful. Each one made the students sweat and shake. But they kept going. Zethrak watched a female student named Megan Torres. Her arms were shaking. She could barely hold herself up. She collapsed on the ground. Zethrak moved to help her. But another student, a male named Chris Yang, just laughed and pulled her up. "Come on, Torres, 10 more," Chris said. Megan nodded. Sweat poured down her face. Her whole body was shaking. But she got back into position. She did 10 more push-ups through pure determination. Her arms looked like they might break, but she finished. After an hour of this torture, Jake finally told them to stop. "Go shower and eat breakfast. Be ready for classes at 7 o'clock. "Yes, sir," the students shouted. Zethrak walked slowly back to his room. Every muscle in his body hurt. He had barely kept up with the students. And they did this every single morning. For 4 years. How was that possible? At breakfast, he sat with Ryan and other students. He watched them eat huge amounts of food. Eggs, bread, meat, fruit. They ate like they were starving. Their bodies needed fuel after that brutal exercise. "Does every morning start like this?" Zethrak asked. "Yes, sir," Ryan said while eating. "Some days are harder. Some days are easier. This is normal." "And you do this for 4 years?" "Yes, sir," Ryan smiled. "It builds character." Zethrak looked around the large dining room. Hundreds of young humans. All of them had just completed what he thought was an extreme test. All of them were now preparing for a full day of classes and more training. Not one of them seemed to think this was strange. A dark thought entered Zethrak's mind. If this was how humans trained during peacetime, what were they like during war? The rest of the day did not get easier. Zethrak attended classes with the students. History, tactics, engineering. The students took notes and asked questions. They were smart, but Zethrak could barely focus. His body still hurt from the morning. In the afternoon, there was more training. The students went to a field for combat practice. Zethrak followed Ryan's group. An instructor named Kyle Martinez stood before them. He was a short, muscular human with scars on his hands. He looked at the students with hard eyes. "Today we practice hand-to-hand combat," Kyle said. "Pair up." The students quickly formed pairs. Kyle walked over to Zethrak. "Commander, let me explain our philosophy," Kyle said. "We teach our students to win. Not to fight fair. Not to follow rules. To win. Because in real combat, second place means death." Zethrak watched the students begin to fight. They moved fast. They hit hard. A female student named Amy Chen was fighting a male student much bigger than her. The male was winning at first. He was stronger. But then Amy did something with her legs. She twisted them around his knee. The male student screamed and slapped the ground quickly. Amy let go immediately. "What was that?" Zethrak asked. "A leg lock," Kyle explained. "It attacks the knee joint. Can destroy it permanently, if held too long. And you teach them this? To cripple each other?" Kyle looked at Zethrak with cold eyes. "We teach them everything, Commander. How to break bones. How to choke someone unconscious. How to kill with their bare hands if needed. We teach them to win." The students reset and fought again. Amy and her partner were both smiling. They had just tried to hurt each other. Now, they were friends again. Ready to try again. Zethrak felt sick. These were not normal students. These were not normal soldiers. These humans were being turned into something else. Something dangerous. Later that afternoon, he observed a field exercise. 2 groups of students were conducting a pretend battle in the woods. The forest was thick. The ground was rough, with steep hills. Each student carried heavy equipment, weapons, water, supplies, at least 50 pounds of gear. Zethrak followed one group, led by a student named Brandon Cole. The humans moved through the forest like hunters. They did not talk. They used hand signals. Every step was careful. Every movement had purpose. When they found the enemy group, the fight was quick and violent, even with fake weapons. Students ran. They shouted. They coordinated their movements perfectly. But what shocked Zethrak most was what happened next. Brandon's group had taken pretend casualties. A female student named Nicole Peters had been hit by a fake bullet. She was acting injured. "Peters is down!" Brandon shouted. "Clark, Martinez, secure her." 2 students immediately ran to Nicole. They prepared to carry her to safety. But the ground was terrible. The extraction point was up a steep hill through thick brush. It looked impossible. "We cannot carry her and defend ourselves," one student said. "Then we adapt," Brandon replied. He took all of Nicole's gear off her. He gave it to other students to carry. Then 2 of the bigger students lifted Nicole between them. The rest of the group kept their weapons ready. They climbed that terrible hill. All of them were gasping for air. Their legs shook, but they never stopped. They never left Nicole behind. Ryan stood next to Zethrak watching. He nodded with approval. Good leadership, Ryan said. Never leave anyone behind. Even in training? Zethrak asked. This is just practice, especially in training, Ryan said. His voice was serious. We train like we fight. If we learn to leave people behind in training, we will do it in real combat. That is not who we are. Zethrak did not understand. It was not logical. They could have just ended the exercise. Nicole was not really hurt. But these humans treated practice like it was real. They suffered in practice like it was real war. That evening, he attended a history class. The teacher was a woman named Lisa Morgan. She talked about human battles from the past. Ancient battles with swords. Modern battles with guns. She described places where humans had fought. She told them about a battle called Thermopylae. 300 human soldiers held off an army of hundreds of thousands for 3 days, until they were all dead. She described another battle called Stalingrad. Humans fought over one city for months. In freezing cold weather. Millions died. But neither side would give up. Professor, Zethrak interrupted. These battles had so many deaths. Why did they not retreat? Quote, Lisa looked at him with an expression that made him feel cold inside. Because retreating meant losing, Commander. Humans do not like to lose. We will suffer almost anything to avoid it. By the third day, Zethrak had seen things that gave him nightmares. The Human Military Academy was not a school. It was a place that took young humans and turned them into weapons. Every morning started the same way. Wake up before dawn. Run for miles. Do hundreds of painful exercises. Then attend classes all day. Then more training. Then study at night. Sleep for a few hours. Do it all again. The students never complained. They never asked for breaks. They just kept going. Day after day. Week after week. Year after year. On the third day, Zethrak watched more combat training. This time it was worse. The instructor Kyle brought out practice weapons. Knives made of rubber. Fake guns. Sticks. Today we learn weapon defense, Kyle announced. Your partner will attack you with a weapon. Your job is to survive and counterattack. Zethrak watched in horror as students began attacking each other with knives. Even though the knives were fake, the attacks were real. Fast. Brutal. Meant to kill. A male student named Greg Parker lunged at his partner with a knife. His partner, a female named Rachel Green, moved like water. She dodged the knife, grabbed Greg's arm, twisted it in a way that made Zethrak's own arm hurt just watching. Greg dropped the knife. Rachel swept his legs. Greg hit the ground hard. Good, Kyle shouted. Again. They did it again. And again. Taking turns attacking each other. Learning how to defend. Learning how to counter. Learning how to hurt. Commander, would you like to try? Kyle asked. Zethrak shook his head quickly. I am here to observe only. Kyle smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Of course, sir. But remember, humans learn by doing, not by watching. After combat training, the students had a class on military tactics. The teacher, a man named Professor Gary Fields, taught them about something called asymmetric warfare. When you are weaker than your enemy, you must be smarter, Gary explained. You must use tactics they do not expect. You must be willing to do things they are not willing to do. He showed examples from human history. Small groups of soldiers defeating large armies. Fighters hiding in cities and jungles. Attacks that came from nowhere and disappeared just as fast. Professor, a student asked, what if the enemy has better weapons? Better technology? Gary smiled. Then you make them irrelevant. You fight in ways that make their advantages useless. You turn their strengths into weaknesses. Humans have always been good at this. We are adaptable. Zethrak listened and felt more worried. These humans were not just training to be strong. They were training to be clever, dangerous, unpredictable. That afternoon, there was a survival training exercise. A group of students, including Ryan, were being dropped in the wilderness. They had to survive for 72 hours. They had to avoid instructors who would be hunting them. They had to make it back to base. The students were given almost nothing. A knife, a water bottle, some rope, one emergency radio that they could only use if someone was dying. Zethrak watched from a control room with screens showing camera feeds. An instructor, named Danny Wright, sat next to him. "This seems dangerous," Zethrak said. "It is supposed to be dangerous," Danny replied. "War is dangerous. If they cannot handle a training exercise, they cannot handle real combat. But what if someone gets badly hurt? We have doctors ready." But the students do not know where the doctors are. They know, if they use the emergency radio, help will come. But using the radio means they failed, means they were not strong enough. Zethrak watched the screens as the students were left in the forest. It was already getting dark. The temperature was dropping. The students immediately started working together. Ryan's group found a place to shelter. They found water. They built a fire without matches or lighters, using only sticks and rocks. When night came, it got very cold. The students huddled together for warmth. They took turns sleeping and watching. They looked cold and uncomfortable. But they did not use the emergency radio. On the second day, the instructors began hunting them. The instructors had better equipment. They knew the forest. But the students were smart. They hid. They moved quietly. They worked as a team. Zethrak watched through the cameras as Ryan's group set up false trails. They made it look like they went one direction, but actually went another. When the instructors followed the false trail, the students escaped the other way. "They are clever," Zethrak admitted. "They have to be," Danny said. "Being strong is not enough. Being brave is not enough. You must be smart to survive." On the third day, something went wrong. A female student named Heather Lopez was crossing a stream. She slipped on wet rocks. Her ankle twisted badly. She fell into the water. The other students pulled her out. Heather tried to stand but screamed in pain. Her ankle was injured. Maybe broken. "They will use the emergency radio now," Zethrak said. Danny shook his head. "Watch." Ryan examined Heather's ankle. The other students gathered around. They had a quick discussion. Then they took branches and rope. They made a splint for Heather's ankle. They tied it tight. Two bigger students helped Heather to her feet. They supported her between them. The group started moving again, slower now. But they did not stop. They did not call for help. "She is in pain," Zethrak protested. "She needs a doctor." "She needs a doctor eventually," Danny corrected. "But she is not dying. The injury is not life-threatening. They will finish the mission. Then she will get medical help. You are letting her suffer for no reason." Danny turned to face Zethrak. His face was hard. His eyes were cold. "Commander, let me explain something about humans. We came from a planet that tried to kill us every day. Dangerous animals, diseases, extreme weather, other humans. Everything on Earth was a threat. We survived because we learned to ignore pain. We learned to keep going even when we were hurt. We learned that giving up meant death. So we developed minds that refused to quit." He pointed at the screens. Heather was limping forward, supported by her friends. Her face showed pain, but also determination. "These students will finish this mission because that is what humans do. We endure. We adapt. We overcome. You want to know why the Coalition is nervous about humanity? It is not our weapons. It is this." He tapped the screen. "It is our complete refusal to accept defeat." That evening, Zethrak joined a group of older students for a discussion. They called it a bull session. Just talking about leadership and war. "Commander, can I ask you something?" A student named Scott Davis said. What do your people fight for? We fight for the coalition, Zethrak answered. For peace across the galaxy. But what about you personally? When you are in battle, what keeps you fighting? Zethrak thought about it. Training, discipline, duty. To my unit. The students looked at each other. Ryan spoke carefully. Those things are important to us too, sir. But there is something else. Humans fight for each other. For the person standing next to us. We will suffer anything, sacrifice anything, to save our brothers and sisters, even if you are already losing? Zethrak asked. Especially then, said a quiet student named Kate Morrison. We have a saying, leave no one behind. It is not about winning or losing. It is about the promise we make. You come with me into danger. I will do anything to bring you home. That seems inefficient, Zethrak said. Sometimes you must accept losses for the greater good. The room went quiet. The students looked at him with strange expressions. Some looked confused. Some looked sad for him. Commander, Ryan said slowly, if you ever fight alongside humans, you need to understand this. A human unit will break every rule to save a fallen friend. We will ignore orders. We will sacrifice the mission. It is not logical. It is not smart. But it is who we are. On the fourth day, Zethrak began to understand something terrible. The human military academy was not creating normal soldiers. It was creating something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The morning started the same way. Running before dawn. Endless exercises. But today, Zethrak watched more carefully. He noticed things he had missed before. The students pushed each other. When one person started to fail, others encouraged them. When someone fell behind during the run, others slowed down to help. When someone could not finish their push-ups, their friends shouted encouragement until they completed them. It was not just training. It was building something. A bond between them. A connection stronger than friendship. After morning training, Zethrak attended a class on military history. But this time, the professor Lisa Morgan talked about human psychology. Why do humans fight? She asked the class. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We do not have natural weapons like claws or armor. So why are we good at war? The students offered answers. Better weapons. Better tactics. Better training. Lisa shook her head at each answer. Those things help, but they are not the reason. The reason is simpler and more frightening. Humans fight because we refuse to lose. Other species fight until fighting becomes too costly. Then they retreat. They surrender. They accept defeat. Humans do not do this. We fight until we win or until we are all dead. She looked directly at Zethrak. Commander, your people have a concept of acceptable losses, correct? You calculate when a battle costs too much, and you withdraw? Yes, Zethrak said. That is logical. Humans do not think that way. For us, every battle is personal. Every friend we lose makes us fight harder. Pain makes us angry. Losses make us determined. We do not calculate when to quit. We just keep going. A student raised his hand. Professor, is that not just stubbornness? Lisa smiled. Yes, exactly. Humans are the most stubborn species in the galaxy. And that stubbornness has kept us alive for millions of years. After the class, Zethrak walked around the academy grounds. He watched students moving between classes. They walked with confidence. They joked with each other. They looked like normal young people. But Zethrak knew better now. These were not normal young people. They had been training for years. They woke up at 5 in the morning every day. They ran until their bodies screamed. They fought each other until they bled. They studied tactics and weapons and war, and they did it willingly. They chose this life. That was the most disturbing part. No one forced them. They volunteered. In the afternoon, there was a special exercise. The students were divided into two groups. One group was given a difficult task. They had to defend a position against the other group, but the defending group was given half as many people. They were outnumbered, 2-1. Zethrak watched from a hill overlooking the battlefield. This was just training. Fake weapons. Fake bullets. But the students treated it like real war. The defending group was led by a female student named Julie Adams. She looked at her small force and then at the ground they had to defend. The math was simple. They were going to lose. But Julie did not accept that. She positioned her people cleverly. She set traps. She created false positions that looked defended, but were empty. She kept a reserve force hidden. When the attack came, it was fierce. The attacking force moved fast. They had more people, more weapons. They should have won easily, but Julie's traps worked. The attackers stumbled into ambushes. They wasted ammunition, shooting at empty positions. Julie's hidden reserve hit them from the side when they were not expecting it. The battle lasted an hour. When it ended, Julie's small force had won. They had been outnumbered, but refused to lose. The instructor, a man named Colonel Peter Grant, gathered all the students after the exercise. "What did we learn today?" he asked. Julie raised her hand. "That numbers do not guarantee victory, sir." "Correct. What else?" A male student from the attacking force spoke up. "That we should not underestimate the enemy, sir." "Also correct. But there is something else. Something more important." Colonel Grant looked at all the students. "You learned that humans can win, even when we should lose. Because we are creative, we are adaptable, and we refuse to accept defeat. Remember this when you become officers. Remember this when you face impossible odds. Humans specialize in doing the impossible." That evening, Zethrak was invited to dinner with some of the academy staff, instructors and professors. They ate in a private room and talked about the academy. Lauren Hayes, who had been his guide since arriving, sat next to him. "You have been quiet today, Commander," she observed. "What are you thinking?" Zethrak chose his words carefully. "I am thinking that your academy is very effective, but also very harsh." An older instructor named Frank Morris laughed. "Harsh? This is nothing. You should have seen military training 50 years ago. We have actually made it easier." "Easier?" Zethrak could not believe it. "Your students wake before dawn every day. They train until their bodies fail. They fight each other. They suffer deliberately. How could it have been harder?" "Less. Frank's expression became serious. "The training is hard because war is harder. We make them suffer in training so they can survive in combat. Every exercise they complete, every hardship they endure, that is one more tool they have to stay alive when someone is trying to kill them." Professor Lisa Morgan joined the conversation. "Commander, you seem disturbed by our methods, but you must understand the context. Humans evolved on a death world. Earth tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We survived by becoming tougher, meaner, more determined than anything else on our planet. That survival instinct is still in us. But these are children," Zethrak protested. "Barely adults. You are breaking them." "No," Lauren said firmly. "We are forging them. There is a difference. We push them to their limits so they learn where their limits are. We make them suffer so they learn they can survive suffering. We teach them that their bodies and minds are stronger than they think." "And if they break?" Zethrak asked. "What if they cannot handle it?" "Then they leave," Frank said simply. "About 20% of students quit before graduating. They realize military life is not for them. That is fine. Better to learn it here than in combat. But the ones who stay, the ones who graduate, they become officers who can lead in any situation. They become warriors who will never quit, never surrender, never leave their people behind. Zethrak ate his dinner quietly. He thought about what he had seen over the past 4 days. The endless training, the pain, the determination, the refusal to quit. These humans were creating warriors unlike anything in the galaxy. Not just soldiers who followed orders. Not just fighters who could shoot straight. They were creating people who saw impossible situations and charged forward anyway. People who would endure any suffering to complete their mission. People who valued their friends more than their own lives. It was terrifying. After dinner, Zethrak walked alone around the academy. The sun had set. The students were in their rooms, studying or sleeping. The campus was quiet. He thought about his own people. Valorian warriors were brave. They were skilled. They fought with honor. But they were also logical. They knew when to retreat. They understood acceptable losses. Humans did not think that way. For them, there were no acceptable losses. There was only victory or death. And they prepared their young people for that reality by making them suffer through years of brutal training. Tomorrow was his last day at the academy. He would attend a graduation ceremony. Then, he would return to his ship and write his report. What would he tell the coalition? That humans were dangerous? They already knew that. That human training was harsh? That was not news either. No. He would have to tell them something more important. Something more frightening. He would have to explain that humans were not just another warrior species. They were something new. Unready. Something the galaxy had never encountered before. They were a species that refused to lose. That saw defeat as unacceptable. That would sacrifice everything, even their own lives, for their friends and their mission. And the galaxy would never be the same. On his last day at the academy, Zethrak attended the graduation ceremony. Hundreds of students who had completed 4 years of training were becoming officers. Families filled the seats around the parade ground. Everyone was dressed formally. The atmosphere felt important. Zethrak stood with the other observers as the graduating students marched onto the field. They moved in perfect formation. Every step synchronized. Every movement precise. These young humans who had been tested and broken and rebuilt over 4 years were now ready to lead others. The superintendent of the academy, a gray-haired human named General Paul Henderson, walked to a podium. The crowd went silent. His voice carried across the field. Today, you join a tradition that is thousands of years old. You stand on the shoulders of warriors who fought at Marathon, at Agincourt, at Gettysburg, at Normandy, and countless other battlefields. You carry forward a flame that has been passed down through generations. The flame of those who refuse to quit, refuse to surrender, and refuse to fail their brothers and sisters in arms. Zethrak watched the faces of the graduating students. Some had tears in their eyes. All of them stood proud and tall. These were the same young people he had watched suffer through morning runs and combat training. The same ones who had endured cold nights in the wilderness and hours of studying late at night. They had survived. They had become something more than they were. General Henderson continued. You will face challenges that seem impossible. You will be tired, hungry, cold, and afraid. You will be asked to do things that seem beyond human capability. But remember what you learned here. Remember that your body is stronger than you think. Your mind is tougher than you know. And your friends will never leave you behind. The general paused and looked across the crowd of new officers. Some people will tell you that war is about weapons and technology. It is not. War is about will. It is about which side refuses to quit. And humans have never been good at quitting. After the ceremony, the families gathered with their graduating children. Zethrak watched parents hug their sons and daughters. He saw pride in their faces, but also sadness. They knew these young officers would soon leave to serve. Some might go to dangerous places. Some might not come home. Yet the families still looked proud. They understood what their children had accomplished. They understood the sacrifice that military service required. Lauren found Zethrak standing alone at the edge of the ceremony. "So, Commander, what do you think of human military training?" she asked. Zethrak struggled to find the right words. "It is thorough." Lauren laughed. "That is very diplomatic. I have read the reports from the monitoring devices we placed in your quarters. I know what you really think." 5. I know what you really think. 5. 1. Quote, "We well to the 740. We well to the 740. We well to the 740. We well to the 740. Zethrak felt embarrassed. They had been watching him, listening to his private thoughts. "I apologize if I have given offense." "No offense taken," Lauren assured him. "You are horrified. You think we are crazy. You are wondering what kind of species puts children through years of torture to create warriors." "Yes," Zethrak admitted. "Your methods seem extreme. Your students endure conditions that would break experienced soldiers from my world. You push them past any reasonable limit. And yet they volunteer for this. They embrace it. I do not understand." "Doc." Lauren's face became serious. "Let me tell you a story, Commander. About 100 years ago, before we met your people, humans fought a terrible war among ourselves. Millions died. In one battle, a group of soldiers was surrounded. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. They had no hope of rescue. The enemy commander asked them to surrender. Do you know what they said? What did they say? Nuts." Lauren smiled at Zethrak's confused expression. "It means no, in a very disrespectful way. Those soldiers held their position for days. They suffered terrible casualties. They ran low on ammunition and food. But they did not surrender. Eventually, help arrived. But they were prepared to die, rather than quit." She gestured back toward the academy. "These graduates we just celebrated, we are not torturing them. We are preparing them. Because we know that someday, they might face impossible situations. Situations where only human stubbornness stands between survival and destruction. We teach them that their bodies can endure more than they imagine. We teach them that pain is temporary, but quitting lasts forever. We teach them that the person next to them is worth any sacrifice." "It is a harsh philosophy," Zethrak said quietly. "It is," Lauren agreed. "But it has kept us alive. And now that we are part of the galactic community, it will keep our allies alive too. When humans fight alongside you, Commander, you can be certain of one thing. We will never abandon you. We will never surrender. We will never quit. Even when logic says we should, even when the odds are impossible, humans will keep fighting." Zethrak thought about everything he had witnessed over the past 5 days. The morning runs that never ended. The combat training that looked like actual violence. The survival exercise where an injured student refused to quit. The lectures about refusing to accept defeat. The graduation ceremony, celebrating young people who had endured 4 years of systematic hardship. It all fit together into a terrifying picture. Humans were not creating soldiers. They were creating warriors, with an almost supernatural refusal to accept defeat. "I must write my report now," Zethrak said. "Thank you for your hospitality, Lauren Hayes. Safe travels, Commander. I hope we meet again under better circumstances." Zethrak returned to his shuttle. As it lifted off from Earth, he looked down at the blue planet. Somewhere down there, young humans were waking up before dawn to begin another day of training. They would run until their legs hurt. They would exercise until their muscles failed. They would study and train and push themselves beyond normal limits. And they would do it with pride, with determination, with a smile on their faces. He opened his communication device and began typing his report to the Valorian Star Fleet. His hands shook as he wrote. The Human Military Academy is not an educational institution by our standards. It is a forge. A place that systematically breaks down young humans and rebuilds them into something dangerous. They are trained to ignore pain. They are trained to push past exhaustion. They are trained to view retreat as unacceptable and surrender as unthinkable. They are taught that mission success is secondary to the welfare of their unit, creating warriors who will break any rule to save a friend. Most disturbing is that humans volunteer for this. They embrace suffering as a path to excellence. They compete to endure more hardship. They take pride in their ability to function in conditions that would kill most species. The coalition leaders were wise to seek understanding of human military culture. But I fear they will not like what they learn. Humanity is not like other species. They are predators who evolved on a death world. 4 years of intensive military training only sharpens their natural instincts. If humanity ever turns these abilities against the coalition, we will not face rational opponents who understand when a battle is lost. We will face warriors who view death as preferable to defeat. Warriors who will sacrifice everything to achieve their objectives. Warriors who possess an almost supernatural ability to endure suffering. The humans have a phrase from their ancient writings. I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. But humans are neither sheep nor lions. They are something else. Something that refuses to quit. Something that refuses to die. Something that refuses to lose. Sen. Sign. Sen. Sen. We should be grateful they consider us allies. Because a species that greets the impossible with enthusiasm is not a species anyone wants as an enemy. I recommend we maintain strong relations with Earth. And I sincerely hope we never give them a reason to turn their warriors against us. Zethrak finished his report and sent it. He looked out at the stars. The galaxy suddenly felt smaller, more dangerous. Because somewhere in that vast darkness, millions of humans were training, preparing, building themselves into warriors who would never quit. He thought about the young human Ryan Collins, the student who had guided him all week. Ryan had been friendly and helpful. He had smiled and joked. But behind those eyes was steel, a determination that could not be broken, a will that could not be bent. That was the truth about humans. They seemed friendly. They seemed normal. But beneath the surface was something ancient, something that had survived millions of years on a death world, something that refused to lose. The galaxy had welcomed humanity as a junior member of the coalition, a young species with potential. But Zethrak knew better now. Humanity was not a junior member. They were something else, entirely. They were the species that woke up before dawn to run in the cold. The species that taught their children to ignore pain and refuse defeat. The species that would rather die than surrender. The species that kept fighting when every other species would quit. The galaxy would never be quite the same. And Zethrak knew that someday, somewhere, some enemy would make the mistake of fighting humans. They would see the friendly faces and assume weakness. They would see the diplomatic words and assume softness. They would be wrong. And by the time they realized their mistake, it would be too late. Because humans do not quit. They do not surrender. They do not lose. They just keep fighting until they win or until there is no one left to fight. And that was the most terrifying truth Zethrak had learned at the Human Military Academy.